Most open wheel series will feature primarily road courses, though every single series on the road to Indy ladder does feature the occasional oval. Today, the iRacing Indy Pro 2000 Championship swings down for their first oval race at America's home for racing, the World 600. Welcome to Charlotte Motor Speedway, and welcome to RaceSpotTV. I'm Lorenzo with Lorenzo Bonner beside me up in the commentary box. Hugo Luis down behind the cameras as technical director for tonight's race. The 1.5 mile speedway is a track that is loved by both fans and drivers alike, Lorenzo, and today we can expect this to be a draft fest from flag to flag.
It's going to be an interesting race because it's a total different spectrum that you normally see in the IR18s. IR18s, basically, it is a tire race of sorts. You have to manage your tires, and there isn't a lot of overtaking, especially in the middle portions of the race. So it becomes more of a strategy race. In here, from what I got from the video from my teammate, is actually racing in the split. There were 9 cars battling for the win in the final lap. So it is very, very tricky for overtaking, but it's going to be very convoluted, maybe to start to finish.
It'll be a draft-heavy race, and by far one of the tightest races we have been seeing all season long. 2 splits, unlike the 1 split that we've been seeing so far throughout this season. 19 cars already out there qualifying of the 1.5 mile speedway in North Carolina. It should be a very fun race tonight. It is bound to be a packed race through and through. You talk about tracks where it's flat out all the way around. You typically think tracks like Daytona, Talladega. Today, though, Charlotte gets to show what it can do in that category.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like Charlotte for this kind of cars because I think it does resemble a little bit of the street stocks because it is close racing from start to finish, especially when you are in these top splits where everybody respects their peers side by side, and you're going to see a lot of side by side in this race. So I think positioning here, I think, matters more than everything else, as John Silva is the best lap of this race, only 0.02 of a second better than Jason Owens at this current moment.
And so far, the top 4 separated by just 0.02 of a second. A quarter of a tenth separate first on back all the way to 7th place. A total of just 1/10 separate first to 11th place. It is a very, very tight field tonight as we watch Andy Corsa currently getting some extra practice in there. He is currently sitting as the number 3 driver at the moment. Talk about some drivers having some difficulties, though, with the ovals. It's never the easiest thing to go to an oval. It looks easy, but trust me, it can be very difficult, especially pit exit on cold tires. You're constantly on a turning while trying to accelerate. Conor Melia found that one out the hard way. Got disqualified from the qualifying session due to qualifying conduct. That was because he spun it twice out of pit road.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny for us to talk about spinning twice in the pit road. Probably Charlotte is one of these few tracks where there has no grip, and I mean literally no grip at all on the apron. I think the only portion you kind of have grip is that on the blue line itself, but it's very hard for you to get out of the pit lane as qualifying is over, and we're going to go to the grid.
Qualifying is complete, so it's John Silva up by just 2 thou over Jason Owens to lock out the front row. Andy Corsa sits in 3rd place with Michael Haller down in 4th. Alex May is in 5th place with Jason Lorenzo in 6th.
Absolutely. 7th place go to Kevin Smalley with Bo Rigger in 8th place. 9th goes to Frank Nguyen. And Lyubov Zarestovskaya goes in 10th place, followed by Alexander Bichel in top 12. Rounds up 70 separate from the Indy Alliance Racing.
That is going to put Lucas Popple further towards the rear of the grid with James Allen in 14th. Jake Carter is 4/10 off in 15th place with Jaden Thurlow in 16th. Aero Lehtinen, is the 17th driver and the last driver to set qualifying laps. Rick Campbell and Conor Melia both not being able to set qualifying laps for today's race. So 19 cars getting set to grid on up. I believe we're just waiting on Rick Campbell and maybe 1 or 2 others before we can get this one and only pace lap underway. Should be a fun one for 40 laps.
Should be. Again, we can either see this race going 2 ways of sword, which is going to be either we can say a flag fast. I really don't want it to be a flag fast because it's going to be so close racing from start to finish, or it's going to be basically what happened on the previous split, on the last split prior to our broadcast. 9 cars, basically 10 cars all the way from the start to finish with chances of winning this race. One big wreck can settle the entire grid for good.
Oh, absolutely. It only takes, that one little mistake. And usually, if you're racing in stock cars, which is typically what we see here, at least on the oval side of Charlotte, a little bit of a rub and you can get away with it. But in these open wheel cars, one touch of the wheels will not, if not send you around, it could send you flying into the outside wall. It is a very easy thing to be able to make contact, especially when you're in these low-powered cars. It's not like, Texas in the Indy cars where you might be lifting off and you might even be able to break apart a little bit. These cars, it is foot to the floor all the way around. And I imagine, especially when you're in the middle of the pack, it's going to be even harder to keep control of the car, considering a lot of these guys, they're going to be out there running as low up and down from the setup as possible.
They are, and here's the thing: whenever you are in the middle of the pack, you're basically going nearly four wide at some point of the track. You can go 3 wide through the turns. Maybe you can go 4 wide at the back stretch, and maybe front stretch if you want to risk it. But you might have to do some lifting off in between, so you can keep that car in your line and then try to survive whenever you get to the turns.
So coming on down to the back straightaway for the first and only time today. It's only 40 laps, so it is a very, very short race that we're going to be seeing here. I believe that is only about 85 miles that we're going to be set to see. So it's not going to be a very long race, so to speak, but that doesn't mean it won't be an exciting one.
No, absolutely not. It's going to be a real interesting one, and I really am interested to see how these guys from the back are going to try to claw up their spots here in the field, and it's going to be an interesting race to follow up. Can't wait to see what my teammate will do from the pole position.
The iRacing pace car pulls down to pit road. We are happy that you're joining with us on a Friday night. In the hands of John Silva, 60 miles, 40 laps as he enters the restart zone. We are underway from Charlotte, and already they're 3 wide. Further in the background, making almost 4 trying to come to the tri-oval.
Yeah, Frank Nguyen just got a little bit excited right there at the start-finish line. Might have gotten maybe a penalty for the guy that was on the inside on the front row ahead of him. So it's going to be an interesting race as everybody try to go now 2 lines, maybe 3 lines on the back stretch. Oh!
Big contact. Alex May has a broken right front suspension down on the apron of 1 and 2. Somehow they survive it. Bo Rigger was the driver he made contact with. They're 2, 3 wide, further in the background, but up in front. Caution, flag flies deeper in the field. It's a huge mess. RaceSpotTV is in it. I see Smalley is in it. Thurlow is there. It's a 5-6 car pile up deeper in the field, and it all kicked off with Lyubov and Kevin Smalley making contact in the first part of the tri-oval.
Yeah, it looked like the cars got pinched in. Lyubov just made a little bit of I want to say maybe a little bit of a spacing mistake. Going into the start-finish line, it kind of pinched off the guy on the inside. It does cause the contact, and basically half of the grid got involved. Nearly half of the grid got involved into this incident per se. But I think those who got damaged at the start of the race can basically bounce back, going to the pit stop, maybe not lose a lap in the process, and come back on track.
So a big mess early on. There was only about 4 or 5 cars behind this that actually got through unscathed. Take a look at the replay from the air, and oh wow, I think that tells the entire story right there. There's nothing that needs to be said about what really caused that one.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, it's whenever you're on the first lap, you're trying to move up in the field, and you have to find yourself within the gridding properly. And in an oval race, that's the first race right there, and it's complicated because you really want to be clean through that first lap, but you have to also take consideration these cars behave differently on cold tires. You have to take maybe 4 or 5 laps to the grip, build it in properly, and you have more safety going through the turns. So unfortunate.
So far out of the drivers that got collected, we're going to take a ride on board with Jaden Thurlow. Nowhere to go. Just got clipped right at the end. I thought he didn't make it out of that one unscathed, and one of the hazards, you slow down enough and somebody might end up cleaning you out from the rear. So out of the drivers that were involved in that, Alexander Bichel is out. Lyubov Ozarestov-Skaya is down on pit road still. Kevin Smalley is out, as is Alex May. Everybody else appears to still be on track and safe for the time being, that is, until we get around for restart number 1.
Yeah, and it's going to be a really interesting restart because majorly, I think this is going to be single file mode. We still have 1 more lap, and these single file restarts, if we get them, of course, it benefits the leader way too much, because you can basically get a half a second breakaway depending where you start on the restart, and that clogs up the field on the back, so everybody in the back can actually try to move up a few spots in the field and just get convoluted during the restart. But so far, an interesting race to break down, to say the least.
You mentioned that having single file restarts could give a huge advantage to your race leaders. It might allow them to pull ahead a bit more, but the question is, do you really want to pull ahead that much further? While it might work for you at a track like, say, Richmond or even the Lucas Oil Raceway, not going to be so well here at Charlotte. When you're foot to the floor, that just means there's going to be an even bigger run coming up on you from behind, and you're going to be completely helpless against it.
Yeah, but the only problem we have to mention is that let's just say you try to make an overtake going from 3 to 4. 3 to 4 has that basically elevation and banking change going into the start finish line, that if you were in the IR18, for example, there was a good chance the car might step out in its rear, because it is such an interesting groove change that the car steps out and you have to basically hold it with your hands real tight in the car. Here the difference is a whole lot of difference, because no power whatsoever, low downforce in comparison to the IR18, so you can be much cleaner, much faster the turns, and do not get concerned with that groove change whenever you go into the start finish line.
You saw Andy Corsa drop down the order and just exit pit roads at the tail end of the field. He had some front wing damage, so Corsa coming down, get that front wing changed and get a fresh set of rubber on there as well. And I believe we're now riding on board with, this is Lucas Poppel coming around through turns 2 and 3 at the moment. As I say that, I'm going to correct myself. It is Arrow Lettinen that we are currently riding on board with, as he gets set to restart behind Jason Pidou. Coming around turn 4, though, the pace car going to make the dive down onto pit road. John Silva once again has control over the field, and there's no one's hanging back a little bit. Checked up in the middle of the field as they try to anticipate the start, and they're still checking up. One car spins into the infield, and that was a messy restart, to say the very least. Pedro goes around. Apart from that, though, we're green across the boards.
Yeah, Pedro just got really aggressive on that restart and basically got caught off with the checkup, and unfortunate for him to spin around, but was still under green.
A clean start, all things considered. That's the hazard of one driver trying to anticipate the start. They have to then stop. That checks everybody behind them who thinks they already are properly going. You talk about John Silva wanting to get that launch. He got a bit of a gap, but look out for Frank Newen storming by around the outside line, trying to take the race lead away. And you will take that lead away, coming around to turns 1 and 2, trying to pin the 7 car down onto the bottom lane here, coming around through turn 2 down the back straightaway for the 7th time today.
Yeah, and look at Bo Rigger now making it 3 wide on the second roll. Gonna try to get that run with a side draft going to first place, but I might break off a little bit whenever they go into turn number 4.
And out of turn number 4 they go. Silva holds the race lead, and look at the pack thundering down to the turn number 1. Absolutely terrifying note to watch, especially if you're the likes of Michael Haller, who's caught in the middle of 3 wide. Right on board with Frank Newen here, who's still trying to make a charge at the race lead, but he's just not able to get the run that he needs. Out of turns 3 and 4, there is Lettinen, who has got a perfect view of all the chaos going on up in front of him. And look at the 4 car bobbling all over the place. He gets too close to call with Michael Haller.
Yeah, look at that number 11. Haller's basically pitched in every part of the corner that he goes, and somehow, someway, still makes it out alive. And we're still nearly 3 wide, but for 3 full laps, this can end in disaster in the next few laps.
3 wide for the race lead. Bo Rigger's got the run around the outside line, but it's not going to be enough to pull ahead and clear by the time they get down for 3 and 4. Almost making contact with Frank Newen in the middle groove. Look out for John Silva. He bounces off the apron, and Bo Rigger goes into the outside wall, slams the outside wall, sliding to a stop as his suspension is destroyed. No caution flag waves, but Rigger goes from fighting for first to being out of the fight altogether.
Yeah, they're out of the fight altogether, but then again, the aggression is so huge in this pack that it's not easy for them to break away that easily. You know, there's still a whole lot of effort. You can still see 7 cars, and I mean 7 cars battling for the lead and not far behind. Whoever's in 8th place and 9th place can still make it, and they are actually making the gap. As you see the replay, what happened to Bullrigger.
You just got a little bit of a tap there from Frank Newen, and that little tap sends him up into the outside wall. They are catching lap traffic. It's Jaden Thurlow that they're starting to run down in the number 3 car. Thurlow is back on course and been collected in that first big one. And Frank Newen still going to be side by side with John Silva. A couple of the guys in the field were mentioning he might not want to be 3 wide by the time you reach that lap car.
Hey, Nolan, have you ever seen bum drafting in Indy Pro?
Can't say I have. It'd be a first.
That just happened whenever they got into 3 between Michael Holler and Frank Newen.
Oh boy, Andy Corsa going to go up to the top and go 3 wide. I think he's trying to get a draft from Jaden Thurlow up there. See if we can use that as a run and maybe use the lap car as a pick around the outside line. That's actually going to work for Thurlow. Look at the head of steam that the 14 has got around the outside line, trying to stick with it. He's the only one that's got drafting help at the moment in this top 3, as they're still 3 wide for the race lead. Are they going to go 4 wide potentially here with a lap car? Yeah, they're definitely going to try it. Andy Corsa still trying to find some way to maybe make that work, but he's going to end up getting stalled out here.
Yeah, now losing 2-3 spots here in the field. Nearly lost Otto Lehtinen as well, but now got pinched back 2 wide with the 3rd car being in the back, just using the side drive to stay as alive as possible.
This is honestly a nail-biting thing to watch as Corsa gets a bit too close to the outside wall than I think he would have liked. One wrong move, and it's going to set something off. And with all these guys this close together, we'd be seeing at least half the field being taken out.
Yeah, if that wasn't the other split, the chases would have been, I think, tremendous. But here, the level is so high, the respect you can see is mutual between everybody. That everybody's trying to give room to one another, not trying to be overly aggressive. Also, these cars, they don't have a lot of power, so they're probably revving out by the time they get into turn number 3. So they don't have the room necessary or the speed necessary to make those moves.
Take a look on what Jake Carter is seeing in the midst of all of this. The number 10 car has been doing a good job to keep himself out of trouble, but now he is stuck right in the middle of this thing. He's got cars high, an apron down low, and then he's got cars in front and behind. Nowhere you can go. Carter's just got to hope that, he can trust the guys in front of him as well as trust the guys in behind him should he have to check up for some sort of an incident. It's always a very risky thing you have to try to balance. Do you really think you can trust the guys around you?
Yeah, and that's a big question you have to make, because you don't know if you can trust the other guy. And this is the thing about oval racing, right? Especially in these low power cars. You go to a track like this that you don't really see NASCAR cars in this. We don't see Indy cars anymore in this, right? So it's one of those tricky things of if I'm the bottom line, can I trust the guy on this high line to stay within that high line? Not gonna weave too much, not gonna cause any wheel-to-wheel contact. So it's tricky, especially if they don't have any knowledge of the other driver.
Still double file. It almost looks like a high-speed pace lap from what we're seeing at this point. I mean, Frank Newen has been side by side with John Silva for the better part of this run now, apart from the opening lap, and he has just not been able to pull ahead. Number 5 car has got to try something else, and here is Silva coming up from the apron just a little bit, nearly sent Newen up into the outside wall. But it's a tricky thing, isn't it? Because, I mean, what is Newen supposed to do? He's already pushing as hard as he possibly can. He can't get more of a run than what he's got right now.
No, he cannot, because you get pinched in, plus you have the side draft, so you got a lot of variables that take effect over here, and you cannot do anything about it. You just have to stay behind the car that you are in front of, maybe in the final lap, in the final 2 laps maybe. Then you can start to do some different funky strategies to try to move up the field and try to get a better spot. But you see everybody kind of marking each other, because right now the gap between 1st to 11, and I'm not joking, 1st to 11, just about a second.
So far, John Silva still leads the race. He's led the most laps so far today. Frank Newen getting a little feisty further in the background. You saw the 10-car Jake Carter dip all four wheels onto the apron for just a brief moment. I think Carter's just trying to keep himself out of trouble here and just trying to see if he can leave enough of a gap that if to make contact in front, he's got just a little bit more room so he can check up. And the way these top two are racing, you wonder how long it's going to be before the contact is made.
Yeah, you wonder when that will happen, you know. But I think it comes with the fact that both guys drive in IR18s in the Indy cars in the ovals. I know John because he's my teammate. He drives mainly Indy cars and he's quite good at it. We even saw him top splitters in the Indy car last season, some of the tracks. So he has the knowledge to try to get these two wides more than some of the other drivers. But you can see you know, these marking of the drivers is pretty much interesting because you can grab some data of how the driver is weighting his psychological part. So it's going to be an interesting thing. What is the most interesting, and we cannot even see it, is the chat that is going on in the middle of the race.
We are now just over halfway in the race, and Jason Owens saying to everybody, because they made it to halfway, gets orange slices now for participation. Yeah. So yeah, some of the guys clearly having some fun down there on the track, and it certainly looks like everybody's having fun. But if I'm guys that are, you know, more trapped in the middle of this thing, guys like Jake Carter, and even, you know, left it in further down in the field, I'm still sweating with my hands on the wheel.
Yeah, you can now see Indy Corsa trying that outside line again for on the top side, 3 wide, and you're gonna see how fold back into 2 wide because nobody there to follow him, and the side draft did not work at all.
Opening up a 3 wide mover on the outside line is usually quite a risky thing. You need somebody else to come with you, not necessarily to bump draft, but more just to push the air pocket a little bit further forward and make it a bit more of a force to reckon with.
Now I'm curious, they called it a bump draft or a wing draft?
Gearbox draft, I think, is actually probably the most accurate thing.
Better. Possibly, yeah. Well, you know, open wheels, yeah, makes more sense.
Like a hauler trying to link up maybe with Frank Newen, trying to see if he can maybe arrow push the number 5 car further up to the front of this thing, getting a bit close over to that back wing. But so far, Frank Newen still hanging tough with it and not willing to bow out from the outside groove. And I can understand why Frank Newen doesn't want to, you know, back out from the outside groove. He doesn't have room to fit in on the inside line, so the only way forward is to go 3 wide and go all the way to the rear of this train. And from there, you know, your hopes of, you know, getting to the front of the field again are pretty much dashed.
Yeah, you're pretty much dashed, but you have to come, I think, from basically 4/10, maybe 3/10 behind, get a really good run, kind of stay with the side draft going into the turns, and that is not easy, especially if you're on the top side. You don't get that much draft as you probably would be in the middle of the line. So it's a commitment, you know, but I think Indy Corsa is being patient. I think the guy right behind him, which is Lucas Popula as well, being patient as well. So, of course, we're not going to see with 16, nearly also 15 to go, 3 wide for top 3 and even at the win in this track.
As soon as Michael Hauler makes that lookout, I have a feeling that's when everything is going to really kick off. And he's been showing the nose a couple of times. You see him kind of poke out again down the back straightaway and out of turn number 2. I think he's going to wait, though, until we get a bit closer, maybe when we're 2 or even 1 more lap remaining in this thing. Until then, there's really no point in trying to, you know, make those bonsai 3 wide moves, because, I mean, what are you going to do to get to the front? You're just going to be passed right back if somebody decides to do the same thing to you. It's
kind of like I think the best way to describe it is kind of like we're watching a open wheel version of the Daytona 500 or Talladega, right? You try a different line, and the line doesn't work. You get paid by losing 2-3 spots in it, and eventually you claw back just as easily as you lost those positions. So it's that famous chess game of being pack racing and try to pick where you should go for those top spots, where and when you should go for those top spots.
It's a high-speed chess game at over 150 miles an hour that these guys are having to contend with at the moment. It's all mind games, isn't it? You mentioned how this is, you know, much like what we see in Daytona and Talladega, except that I'd honestly like to beg to differ that it's even more exciting because the likelihood that you're able to open up a second lane is a lot more difficult nowadays with the new drafting package that the stock cars tend to run nowadays. With the Indy Pro 2000, though, they're not necessarily having to worry about that one clearly. Oh, looks like Jason Owens clipped the grass a little bit that time by. Now, of course, the grass is fake grass, artificial in the infield at Charlotte, but that doesn't mean that there's no risk in clipping it.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
What?
Holler just gave Newman a push into turn 3.
Oh, yeah. But he's been doing that for the past every single lap. I think for the past 5 or 6 laps, he's been doing that regularly. So it's not surprising for you to see that gearbox bump draft of sorts from Holler into Newman.
And look at this amazing shot, just showing really how close that front wing is up to Frank Newman's back wing. And look at this, there's another push. Bump draft in an Indy Pro 2000. You've seen it here first at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. How about that? It's a shame these pushes aren't really enough to make Newman go anywhere.
Yeah, well, it's been proven that sometimes it does work. And Jason Owens tried to go on the inside. I thought John gave a little bit of a room for Jason Owens to go on the inside, but it got blocked off the start-finish line right there, going to 1. So it's going to become interesting again as they go into 2-foot again. But as I was mentioning, bump drafting in open wheelers have been proven successful because we see Max Verstappen do it, I think, with Larryton Vorda in a red light special event in Spa-Francorchamps, if I recall correctly.
There was also that moment, don't forget, as well, in the mid-2000s. I believe it was in a GP2 race where we saw a lot of bump drafting going on down the front straightaway at Monza. So it's something that doesn't even happen in the real world. It's a lot rarer to see, and I'll tell you what, the bumps that we're seeing here are getting me a little bit on edge here because it's a lot more difficult to try to keep it straight. Newman's going to go to the front, though. How about that for a push?
How about that for a push, and how about that for a block, basically checking up the entire inside line. Now, what does John do? You know, saying the inside line is a preferred line of sorts. So if you want to make a move, you kind of have to stay on the top line, going and block off last second that inside line. So if John wants to get back that P1, he has to make possibly a move whenever he gets a gap from that top line, but it's not going to be easy.
It certainly will not, and Michael Haller probably not the happiest of campers after getting abandoned. Worked so hard to push Newman to the front and then just got abandoned by Newman as soon as he reached the race lead. But look out for that number 11 car. He is fighting back with help from Andy Corsa now, trying to open up that outside groove. John Silva trying to work the inside line, almost making wheel-to-wheel contact with the number 11 with the 7, make it 6.5 laps to go now. This is only going to increase in intensity here to the end of this race.
Yeah, this is basically now shades of Daytona's final 20 laps, right? Everybody scrambling to try to get positions now so we can start seeing 3 wide going to some turns or more aggressiveness out of the drivers. So it's going to be interesting as I nearly saw it on Lehtinen nearly taking out Jake Carter at the back.
Well, if you haven't gotten out the popcorn over at home, I would highly advise that you do, because this is a race for the ages. Look out on the outside line. Lucas Papo going to make a charge. And this time he's got help. Connor Melly trying to go and help. But Lehtinen decides to cut him off instead. That was a huge risky move.
Now Papo taking the advantage of Lehtinen, making a really bad move into turn number 4, going 3 wide. Now get pinched in by Lehtinen on the start of the turn number 1. And Lehtinen, you know, being that aggressive on the final 5 lap of this race. Well, the time is not if you really want to be aggressive and trying to make those moves up.
Lehtinen going to try to go for the outside line. Here comes Andy Corsa trying to make it 3 wide for the race lead. That opens up the door for Jake Carter to try to push his way up into the top 5. The 10 car is going to move up to the 4th position now, and you might have to give a bit of a helping hand here to Michael. Behind. That is the race, I believe. Andy Corsa gets spun. Popple is with it as well. They both crash hard into pit road. Connor Melia is in it as well. I believe that is the race.
Yeah, this is a race. 4 laps to go. It's unfortunate, you know, and you end up with the last second move. You're going to see now on the replay what happened right there. Papo just getting, drivers beating themselves halfway, and unfortunate that Pompo got I think that was Corsa on the outside line and sent them both into the pit wall. If that was not on the pit stalls, I think the team crew that was on that pit stall might not accept them at all.
So 3 laps to go and under caution. And this will be the race. The race will be ending under the yellow flag. No green or white checkers in the iRacing Indy Pro 2000 series. So Frank Newen, your effective race winner at the moment. He's just got to try to run out these last 2.5 laps under the yellow flag, and then this race can be declared official. Not the way we wanted to see this race end. It was getting set up for one heck of a finish. It's a shame when a race like this that's this excited, honestly, has to end under a yellow flag.
It's been a very exciting race, but it's always a bummer when we see this finish in green white checkers. It's kind of like in full anticlimactic, to see these kind of finishes. But hey, open wheel racing is like that, of course. We see that in Indy Star, in Indy cars, and I think you even see that in US F2000. So why it shouldn't be in the Indy Pros, right? So it's going to be interesting.
So 2 laps and 3 miles to go under the safety car, and already drivers passing on there. Congratulations to Frank Newen down there on the track. And tell you what, that push that he got from Haller, that is what secured Frank Newen the win in this one. Had that push not come, I honestly think that John Silva might have just been able to hold him off.
Yeah, and because of this draft battle, it just happens that whenever you go to the finish line, it's going to be those marginal differences that make the difference. And John just couldn't make up the ground to stay in second place. And Haller, that aggressiveness and bump drafting kind of paid off the source. In the fact that he was the first car with a little bit of a clear room, helped him move up a few spots up and get that P2 out of the Brazilian driver.
You look back, of course, over the course of the race, and then you have to remind yourself that it is not the last oval race on the year as well. There are going to be others, which should make it a rather entertaining race. I think it's to say at the very least. There are more oval races to come, and there are some more exciting road courses that come on up as well. So Frank Newen likely going to be trying to go back to back.
Frank Newen try to go back to back right here, and as we're going to approach the final lap of this race. This eventually, if we had like 5 to go whenever the yellow flag came out, obviously this would have been basically a green white checker of sorts, right? But the green white being in the same lap, of course. So it basically would be scrambled to the finish, and Frank Newen basically would have kind of hold back the entire field and not allow anybody to get a run. But hey, nature of open wheel cars, nothing we can do about it.
And of course, the high speeds that we're seeing, they're going to continue on as well. Of course, you got tracks like the Red Bull Ring that's coming out next week, and it's not even the last one going to be at Charlotte. The Roval is going to round out the first half of the season. The other oval races we got on the year are going to be the Worldwide Technology Raceway for round number 7. Then don't forget the Milwaukee Mile as well for the penultimate round. You got a lot of very exciting tracks coming up as well, and I have a feeling this is going to be far from the entertaining race on the season.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the most interesting races of the season. But then again, we have such a clustered calendar, so it's going to be interesting to break down the other few races. We have some interesting ovals to move up. We're going to be checking the calendar afterwards. As you guys see, going to be the next ovals in the season. So it's going to be a very, very interesting season. It's been an interesting season far from the Pre-2000, but those ovals might be the deal breaker for top spots.
So come on out and give it up for Frank Newen out of turn number 4. Going to be alongside Michael Haller as they cross the finish line. Frank Newen is going to officially win the race here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And And with all the drivers now coming across the line and the fireworks going off deep into the North Carolina night, let's take a look down at your post-race results in just a moment here. It was a good race, and a shame it had to end the way it did. It was a bit of a premature ending and a lackluster end considering all the action that we had beforehand, but my oh my, what a run we had.
Yeah, what a run we had. A little bit claustrophobic at times, but it's been a very, very interesting race. Of course, we didn't get the last last split finish where they finished under green flag on the top split, but hey, it's one of those races that you make it or break it, and you had to take your chances, and Frankie Wayne took his chance. We tend to go and got paid off, as you see the results in this race.
Of course, Frankie getting paid off here with the win by just, well, 0.05 of a second over Michael Haller, but the gaps really don't necessarily matter, seeing as how we were under caution when the race ended. John Silva rounded out the podium with Jake Carter in 4th, Jason Owens in 5th, James Allen in 6th. It's going to be Eero Lehtinen in 7th place with Rick Campbell in 8th. Jason Petty, the last driver on the lead lap, finishes it out in 9th with Andy Corsa down in 10th.
Yeah, and after that, we have Andy Corsa, as you say, Andy Corsa 11th, Connor Melia in 12th, Lucas Papo 13th, Alex May 14th, 77 14th, Jaden Thurlow 15th, Alexander Bishop 16th, Kevin Smalley, Bo Rigger, and Lyubov Zaretovskaya round out the 19 car field here at Charlotte.
Best lap, a 31.698, set by Popple himself, who crashed on the last caution, but that was set back on lap number 7. So 40 laps and 60 miles later. What a race indeed. And the action is only going to continue as we get set to swing back over to Austria for the Red Bull Ring for a 21 lap race. And Lorenzo, you remember the last time we were there last season? Oh boy, that was a show.
That was true, especially between the, I think it was even Otto Lehtinen and Greg Seitz battling for the lead, and unfortunate that Greg Seitz had a little bit of an issue, and we had also basically a last lap battle between teammates as well. So it's going to be a very, very exciting race. Going to be a draft race of sorts, just like we saw on the previous season. So you can't wait to see what 1 week time will bring us in the track.
It should be a very entertaining race as we get set to swing on over to the Red Bull Ring over in Austria, so we can get set out with round number 4 on the iRacing Indy Pro 2000 Championship. But for now, that is all the time we're going to have for one night. My name is Nolan Rempo with Lorenzo Bonner joining me in the broadcast booth, and of course, Hugo Luis as acting technical director down behind the cameras for tonight's race. Thank you once again for joining us for more action on a Friday night for the Indy Pro 2000 Championship, and we will see you guys all next week.